Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. No matter what time of day it is, no matter where you're at, we're glad that you decided to come here and join us for this session. This is likely going to be the last session of 2022. So thank you guys for coming in and making 22 a very great year for us. When we started this back in October of 20, we didn't know how far this was going to go. We didn't know how many sessions we were going to offer. It was honestly just a means to get some training out there so that our people didn't lapse here in Missouri. But, that being said, I sent out certificates last night and we're up to almost 6,000 lines in my database now of people who have actually we're over 6,000. So sorry for coughing. So, I mean, seriously, guys, thank you so much for being part of this. So I'm going to do something that's just a little odd, and I didn't tell Matt about this, but I am going to sort my sessions by sign-in time. So they're all sorts of messed up. And Matt, if you would choose between the number 2, and number 6,590. Just choose a random number in between that range.
Okay.
And tell me what it is.
86.
Number 86. Number 86 is LeVay Robinson out of Minneapolis Emergency Communications Center. So LeVay, congratulations. You just won yourself a free challenge coin and patch. Compliments of being number 86 to sign in, which is just randomly assigned based on your sign in time. So good job. We will probably do that again at our next session in January. And don't ask me when that is because I have no idea when that is. Okay, so just a couple of housekeepings before I turn it over to Matt. This session is provided for free through the Missouri Professional Training Partnership. You can learn more about our training partnership at moapco.org/training. You can also see all of our sessions, our past sessions, our current sessions, and our future sessions on our training portal, which I will link right now. There we go. There it is. And it's got a description of all the speakers, all the sessions, and a link to everything. Use the chat feature to talk. He's got some questions that he's going to ask you here throughout the session, and he's wanting audience buy-in. So the more that we buy in, the better that it's going to be, because otherwise Matt's just talking to himself, and that's kind of hard to do. So let's give him some buy-in, everybody. You will get a certificate of attendance or a proof of attendance, depending on if you're in state or out of state. Yeah, I love the bow tie. Him and I get the bow tie going on together.
It's true.
All you'll have to do is sign in. There will be a flashing green button there below where we're at here, about halfway through. You only have to sign in once per session. Give me about 72 hours to get your certificates out after you sign in, just because it's not fully automated. I do go in and do some things. So let's take care of that. I do not certify this training out of state for anybody. A lot of states do recognize Missouri, but I can't guarantee that everybody does. This training is certified inside the state of Missouri for 1 hour of interpersonal perspectives. And then last but not least, again, we've got patches, nice little patch, and a wonderful looking challenge coin that is available at moapco.org on our store page. Everything that we make over how much it costs to actually produce that stuff, goes back into our chapter and to our programs such as this training partnership, the scholarships that we offered at conference, and to the RPL program, and to a couple of other projects that we have going on. So if you want to support our chapter, that is a great way to do that. So I'm going to shut up now and turn it over to Matt and take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zach. It's amazing to see or meet all of you through this kind of virtual thing. And again, thank you to Missouri, APCO, and that partnership to just bring some phenomenal training. I know before Zach and I even connected about me doing this, my first experience was just attending some of the trainings and being pretty impressed with what's going on. So today, though, I want to kind of just jump into it and be a good steward of everyone's time. First and foremost, my name is Matt Harwell. And today we're going to be talking about finishing well. What does it mean to leave a legacy? So again, welcome. And to kind of start, though, I just want to prompt this with a question. And this is more just to think about and kind of reflect on. But where are you actually at in your career? Do you feel like it's still the beginning, the middle, the end? Are you truly at a point where you're ready to leave? And one of the things today I kind of want to explore is it doesn't matter if it's leaving because you feel like it's time to retire, whether it may be something like burnout, just a transition that was planned and totally purposed and intended. Regardless of what it is, let's really just explore what does it mean to finish well, and what does it mean to not only leave a legacy, but leave a stellar legacy, and sometimes even long, long after you're gone. To begin, though, real quickly, I just want to kind of highlight some of our take-home points. For me, my intention is that everything we talk about today is going to be practical, real, and relevant. And we've got 4 key take-home points. That first one is about embracing a true concept of team. We're going to talk about keeping people first while also caring for yourself. We're going to talk about giving without expecting to get. And finally, what does it look like to empower future generations? So part of this, to be practical, real, and relevant, since we're not in the same space or the same room together, you may not be able to bounce these thoughts off of your peers, is grab some paper, grab a writing utensil, take notes, please. Today is not meant for me to just dump a whole bunch of content onto you, but it's really about you beginning a dialogue and a conversation with those around you. So just briefly, before we get into it too much, who am I? Well, in a nutshell, I'm an unconventional millennial. If you've ever attended a session I've put on before, I usually bring this up. For me, putting people like millennials in boxes is not very fair. For me, boxes are just merely those forts, they're spaceships, they're race cars that are yet to be explored, right? So I may be a millennial, but an unconventional one. So if you're wondering, well, why the heck is someone who's a millennial that's probably still got years left in the industry talking to me today about finishing well, leaving a legacy? So a little bit more about me. I was born in a small town in Kansas, grew up outside of Kansas City, Missouri. For those of you who might be in the state of Missouri, I'm from Blue Springs and lived and grew up most of my life there, just east of Kansas City on I-70. Went to college up in Nebraska, did an undergrad in psychology, but then my master's work, I kind of really focused on gerontology and aging studies, and then also a master's of arts there, and then a master's of science in family life. So again, for me, there's some of that background. I've kind of experienced this. Today, the practical, real, and relevant purpose of this session is not to really tell you what does it look like to build this retirement nest egg? What does it look like to choose the right insurance plan to fill those gaps after retirement? What are the best funds to invest in if you're getting ready to like transition from one position to another or hitting that burnout? It's not about just being a resume builder or how to build your resume. Today's not about other fields to check out and some of that, but really what we're going to look at is what does it mean to leave a legacy regardless of when you transition out of the current place you're working in, whether that be a communication center, whether it be a private company, whatever it may be. For me, I work at the Lambert County Sheriff's Office up in Fort Collins, Colorado. I love it. I've been there since 2016, but you've heard a little bit about me. Now what I want to do, and if you're willing to throw some of this stuff in the chat, great. Otherwise, again, just kind of note some of this down. So to get to know each other, I want you to, there's 4 different options. And I know this is weird. Usually you go to a session and they're like, what's your favorite bubble gum? And then they're going to deduce what that means about you. But for us, as we look at like our legacy and what does it mean to reflect, I've got these 4 prompts. So the first one's looking at age. Second one, if you're moving to the right, is decade. Down to the lower left is gift, and over to music. And if you'd be willing, just take a few seconds and answer one of those. again, if you're willing to throw your answer into the chat, that's awesome. Maybe Zach can share some of those. But I just want you to start kind of thinking about, who am I as a person? Where have I been? What are some of these things that are about me? Honestly, the things you share may even surprise those who know you. Again, if you want to just jot down all of these questions to share with your family or your coworkers later, it's a cool talking point. So maybe take just 10 or 15 seconds to kind of look at that before we jump into the rest of the session. And Zach, if anything really sticks out, would you share that with us?
Yeah, no, for sure. Just be aware that you're on like a 30-second delay before they actually hear you, so it might take a little bit longer than normal.
Okay, understood.
Okay, Selena Air, and I apologize in advance if I butcher names. I'm not the most apt at pronouncing names. I typically spell them. Sorry. Selena says she currently loves her 40s. Jessica says music, Janet Joplin. So obviously we can be heard. Halcyon's having some issues hearing, but everybody seems to be able to be heard. So
Okay.
let's see. For me, Jennifer Spino says, I think 33 was a good age, young enough where minimum health issues, but old enough to know better. Oh,
That's
gee.
awesome.
Let's see. I guess, ooh, man, these are some hard hitting questions.
They're good introspective questions, right? Just get you
They
thinking.
are. You know, it would be really interesting because the song that comes to mind,
Hmm.
it's "Welcome to the Black Parade" by My Chemical Romance.
It's a good one.
Um, However, if I told my parents that that is what I wanted played at my funeral, they would completely freak out because they don't know I listen to that type of music. So, it
See,
would be
again, these type of questions, it's fun to surprise our family, our friends, our, coworkers with these answers.
yeah. Scott Bowden says 40s and 80s music, carefree and too many to choose from. And then the best gift was a surprise trip to Cabo for his 50th.
That's awesome.
Michael says 34, the 1990s, a PlayStation 1, and Prince.
Prince. Wow. That's good. Well, it sounds like we've got some great buy-in from people and kind of looking at what this means to kind of reflect on our own life. So if any more of these pop up, don't hesitate sharing those. We'll kind of
Just have
move
one
on.
more come in.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, Trent says decade of choice would be early 2000s, ridiculous clothes, boy bands, and we had prime internet culture that had developed.
That's true. That is a phenomenal thing to point out. Yeah, I might agree. The early 2000s was pretty solid for myself as well. Um, yeah, I've when I really wrote out these questions, I took some time just to dig into them. So again, if people are still interested in answering or dropping in more responses later, do it. It's a fun way for us just to connect, even in this virtual platform. But I kind of want to shift into kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today. You saw those four take-home points. Again, we want it to be practical, real, relevant. But before we get started, when we're really talking about finishing well and leaving a legacy, I want to start here. You're obviously all here because at some point you've thought about leaving, or the concept of leaving, whether it be retirement, burnout, whatever it may be, or at some point, hopefully in your life, you're going to be able to retire or leave or transition. So somehow this concept of leaving or finishing is present in your minds. Again, it could be that retirement, burnout, transition, whatever it may be. And it could be the reason that you're thinking about leaving, could be your own darn reason, your own good darn reason. And I don't really need to know what that is. You don't need to share that. But I still want to speak to that as much as possible today. Oftentimes, though, when we ask this question, and the question that I want to start us with today is the one that's at the bottom of the screen there, right? When is the right time to leave? Oftentimes, when that question is posed, you're going to get a few different responses, and I kind of boil down to the four main ones. And again, you may have your own specific reason, but we oftentimes get things like, I want to leave. The right time to leave is when people still like me. Not only do they like me, but I kind of feel like I'm at the top of my game. People think and speak of me well. So, and it's a really positive time to transition out. Another reason that people often share when we think about especially retirement or that transition is when they feel financially stable or when they're financially able to, right? It's not like they're between a rock and a hard place with a lot of issues. But they've thought about things like insurance or maybe some of the new toys they want to buy, whether that be a boat, a new truck, a motorcycle, a camper, whatever it may be, a point when they're really able to travel and travel wherever they want without boundaries, right? So that financially stable and able point. Another one, when is the right time, is when people just feel bored or burned out, right? You've put in as much as you can. People still look at you positively. You haven't really destroyed any relationships per se or made a bad name for yourself, but you're just kind of done personally, and you feel like to continue might be a detriment. So you haven't gone down that slippery slope. And honestly, the final one, and probably the most negative of all of them, is that point. The right time to leave is when you have burned all those bridges. And recently I was kind of, talking to some friends, and sometimes it's not just that you've burned bridges, it's that you've essentially dropped an atomic bomb and destroyed all the bridges in like the 15 counties surrounding the county or city that you live in, right? So I'm sure you all had a thought when I asked the question, when is the right time to leave? And I do want you to really reflect on that, but just keep it to yourself for now. Today, though, we want to jump into these 4 take-home points. With this one, we are going to have a little bit of an extended video to kind of talk about here at the beginning, and it's going to kind of help set the stage. But one of the most challenging things, I think, when we think about finishing well and leaving this legacy is embracing a true concept of team. For us, it's extremely difficult because at times, even if you work in a small center or a giant center, you work in a company that has a lot of employees or not, by virtue of being in a room with others doesn't mean you're necessarily connecting and building that true concept of team, right? Even in our own careers, we may be in the same room with people, experiencing the same incidents, working together as a team, but we're doing so in a manner that still leaves us somewhat isolated or siloed from the others. So the main take-home point that I want to start us off with today is that to really finish well, you've got to start out by embracing this true concept of what it means to be have a good concept of team. And today I want to start us off, and like I said, it's a little bit of a lengthy video, but it really drives this home. It's kind of fun banter. Hopefully some of you are familiar with Jocko. Again, it's about a 7.5-minute video. If you need to grab a coffee refresh or refill, need to slide into the restroom, whatever it is, this might be a great opportunity. But really, really listen well to what he says, because I think it's pretty brilliant and insightful. So we'll watch this video and then we'll jump back over. So if you want to kind of pull that video up, Zach, that would be awesome.
Yeah, give me just a second.
All right.
Thought I was prepared. Obviously, I'm not.
Officer,
you guys wrote some long questions for Echo Charles to read.
We're in there. I'm trying.
He's been studying them for 4 hours.
Yep. I've been a police officer for about 4 years. I consider myself to be proactive and try to get after it every day, much like many of my brother and sister law enforcement officers. Recently, I switched to a bigger agency with a bit of a different mission. I still try to be as proactive and as thorough as I can in everything that I do. But I've noticed that many of the frontline supervisors in this agency want officers to be reactive rather than proactive. The supervisor in particular has told me to stop working so hard and get salty, suggesting that I lower my morale. The question is, how do I build a relationship with these supervisors while still being proactive and working hard?
So this is what I did when I got to SEAL Team 1. I was this guy right here. I was fired up. I was, hey, we're doing an obstacle course today? Cool, I'm gonna wear my rucksack with a 40-pound sandbag in it. And all the guys that were older were, looking at me like, dude, pump the brakes. And, of course, what did I think? those guys aren't hardcore. Those guys are weak. That's what I was thinking. And then, I thought to myself, okay, how can I have influence over them? How can I have influence over the platoon that I'm in? Can I have influence over the platoon that I'm in if everyone that's in my platoon doesn't like me?
No.
Can you? If everyone in my platoon doesn't like me because I'm super hardcore, then are they going to steer it all in my direction?
No.
The answer is no. The answer is no. In fact, they're going to isolate me. In fact, I'm going to have no influence over my platoon. And that's a horrible thing. So, what did I do? Did I just go, okay, cool, it looks like donuts is the deal? No, I didn't do that at all. But I conformed. Right? I conformed. And people think, oh, that's weak. You shouldn't conform. Look, you are not the priority. You as an individual are not the priority in a SEAL platoon. You're not. The priority is the platoon. The priority is the mission. And if we're going to execute a mission, we need to be very tight as a team. So if I put my personality above the unity of the team, I'm hurting our capability of accomplishing the mission. Especially if I realize that guys need to train a little bit harder, and instead of actually doing something that's going to move them in that direction, they reject me, and now I'm outside the brotherhood, the circle. And now I haven't moved them in any right direction at all. So now there's one guy that's in really good shape, me, and everyone else is going in the other direction. And I have no influence over them. That's just terrible. The mission is the most important thing. In order to most effectively execute the mission, we have to have the best possible team. In order to have the best possible team, we have to have trust and relationships inside the team. If I violate that, I'm taken away from the team. I'm taken away from our mission capability. Now, of course, if there's someone that's grossly out of shape or out of standards, yeah, I'm gonna try and tighten that person up. But again, if someone's completely out of standards and all I do is attack them, what's their reaction? It's to step away from me, to reject me. But if I say, hey man, I know you got a lot of experience, and I'm 19 and so I just got out of BUD, so I'm in pretty good shape. But like, can you teach me some of the tactics that you know? And all of a sudden, I'm building a relationship with them. And then I say, hey, do you want to go for a little jog with me after work? And that guy's done 8 deployments and he's tired and he's old, but he wants to be back in shape because we all want to be in shape. And he goes, okay, a short one. And we're moving in the right direction. So that's what you need to do. You have to back off a little bit. You have to find balance. And you have to focus on the team. And it's better to have the whole team, it's better to have 20 people that move a little bit in the right direction than have one person by themselves that's going in the right direction and everyone else is going in the wrong direction. So that's what you need to do. Take the sandbag out of your rucksack a little bit. And I ran with jungle boots on, I did all this stuff. And it didn't take me very long to realize I was not doing the right thing, not making my team stronger. I was isolating myself and stopped it.
So this guy, he should start acting just a little bit salty? or lower his morale appearance a little bit, to kind of fit in, so to speak?
Yeah, you want to be part of the team.
Yeah.
If you're not part of the team, you don't have any influence. If you don't have any influence, you can't move the team in the right direction. If you can't move the team in the right direction, the team is less mission capable. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
Is to make the team more mission capable. Every moment that you don't do that, you're doing something wrong. So yes, you don't have to show up. I mean, just imagine I was a new guy at SEAL Team 1. We show up to run the O course. The O course the obstacle course is a really hard obstacle course. And I show up with a rucksack on with a 40-pound sandbag in it. As a new guy.
Yeah.
You know, of course, a couple people were like, oh, that's fired up. But people were like, okay. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, you're 19 years old and you just got out of buds.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Makes sense.
We don't like you.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like steering like a big van, right? You can't just start making big turns with a big, otherwise that thing's gonna tip over a little bit. See what I'm saying? No, you gotta you gotta go slow is what I'm saying.
okay.
You guys understand.
Awesome. Well, whether you've spent time watching Jocko before or read any of his stuff, it's unique. And I think the biggest thing of this video that really drove home this point, as I initially, for even myself, ideally a long ways away from retirement, maybe a long ways away from any sort of transition to a new career or a new job or opportunity within the field, was really looking at what is a true concept of team is like. It's got to be of the utmost importance, right? Especially as we get towards the end of a career. That true concept of team, like what Jocko is talking about, is what can make or break our ability to have a positive impact on the people around us. And the biggest thing, if we want to leave and finish well and leave this positive legacy, we've got to really care about those around us. So just briefly to recap the video, his main focus, right, is that the mission is the most important thing. That's the goal each and every day. And I think for us, oftentimes, again, we, by virtue of just who we are as caring people, we kind of have that in our minds, but we don't always keep that as the most important thing. So what does it look like to reframe that? Because as a team, we've got to move together, right? We're stronger when we move together. His experience being with the Navy SEALs is quite different than mine, but a lot of the concepts he drives home are very, very similar. And we can really draw a lot of substance from what he shares. So I want to pause briefly. And again, like Zach said earlier, this is about you, and I want to kind of engage you guys. So what might this look like in your context? What does it look like, even if you don't have rank or title? And we're going to talk about that later. True leadership and the ability to influence a true concept of team, it doesn't matter the title before or any letters after your name, right? It's about who you are as a person and what you espouse to do each and every day. You still have influence. So I want you to just pause for a moment, and we're just going to take a brief bit of time. What does this look like for you in your context? You've seen the video. How might you make some notes for yourself to reflect back on after today's session? So just briefly, and then we'll keep moving. And hopefully you've had just, again, a little bit of time to think through that. So speaking of influence, who are those memorable people? Kind of the second point on the screen. Who are the memorable people that you've worked with over the years? You know, I think each and every one of us have had someone in our career that has left and left a really great legacy when they left the industry or transitioned to a different part of the industry. Who are those people that you've worked with that have left this really great memory in your life for positive reasons, right? Not the ones that maybe burn the bridge on the way out. Think about those people. And if you want to throw some of those people in the chat, that's awesome. Again, I think, especially in our context, sometimes it's people that a few of us may know, and especially if you're from the same state or the same area, it might be fun to highlight those people. So share them, but more importantly, share with them the next time you see them. Or if it's an email, or maybe they've even, they've died and they've gone on. What does it look like to share with their family about this phenomenal memory you have of the loved one? This person that used to be part of your team and they transitioned on, right? But just because they left a very, very significant impact on the team that you're a part of today, and this true concept of team that from this day forward, I hope you're really committed to working towards, right? And ultimately what it comes down to, and this is what what I think Jocko's really getting at is the challenge for us, regardless of the type of organization or group we're in, is that we have to always recognize that to be a strong organization is always full of we thinkers. It's not about the me or the individual or I, right? It's about we. And so for us, we need to contribute to that we organization. And again, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter your rank, your title, your status, your position in the organization. You can help design and instill that piece of culture, regardless of where you're at, right? But to do that, and I think this is what Jocko really points out from his time getting on that first SEAL 1 team was, what did he need to do and what do we need to do? To really work towards a strong organization of we thinkers, it might mean that at times we need to take a step back, that at times we may need to conform, like he mentioned. Ultimately, his phrase, and he kind of drives this home, and I think it's humorous because then we get to echo Charles talking about this giant van, and Jocko kind of looks at him like he's crazy, right? Is regardless of the type of vehicle we employ, there's times where we really need to slow down. We need to pump the brakes, as he says, to just reevaluate and revisit where we're at. So before we move on from this first take home point, again, this is about you. This is about equipping and instilling this concept in your mind. What are some notes that you want to jot down? And again, hopefully you've been taking notes this entire time, but I don't want us to miss the opportunity. The goal for this session, again, is to be practical, real, and relevant. To do that, you've got to really connect this back to your life. And in this virtual format, a little bit more of that onus than normal is going to be put on you. So take notes. If you want the link to the Jocko video, let me know. My email's at the end of the presentation. Send me an email. If you want the slide deck, let me know. But really take notes today. Who are these memorable people? What do I need to maybe do to transition in my own life to be more of a we thinker? And what do I need to do to really keep the mission of my team or organization at the forefront, to really make that the goal? But as we move on, I want to bring up point number 2, and I think this one is kind of ironic, right? So point number 2 is keeping people first while also caring for yourself. And I think times when I've mentioned this to people, they kind of push back and say, "Is that even possible? Is this phrase kind of an oxymoron? Is this real? Is this attainable in our lives?" And I'm here to say, I think it is. We can keep people first while also really caring for ourselves, and in doing so, we have to really be mindful of everything. Before we jump too far into this next point, though, there's one thing that I want to really recognize, and I think it's something we've learned in the industry really, really well, and probably in public safety in a broader sense, right? But for sure, in public safety telecommunications, is this: health and wellness is vital. Those two things, they are extremely vital in our everyday life. If we aren't well ourselves, it's really hard to care for other people. You know, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, and that's one of the things too, is like, even him, he says, like, if we value the customers or our stakeholders so much so that we're doing a disservice to our own employees, we've missed the mark, right? And for us as humans, if we're trying to care for other people so much that we stop caring for ourselves, it's hard for us to really care for other people. So to really get going today, I want to ask a question, and it's that first line there, the question, "How are you doing?" But what I'm going to challenge all of you. For me, I'm on our peer support team at the agency, and one of the things that we really strive to kind of lay out for people is that we no longer like the word fine. Fine is just another 4-letter F word, and in our context, we don't want to just be content with someone saying, "Oh, I'm fine." We say it so often. So I want you to take just a brief moment and answer the question. Maybe again, make some notes for yourself. Be mindful of this. How are you doing? And as you think about that, I want you to think about these further questions. Are you caring for yourself? Are you keeping others first to the detriment of your own wellness? Or maybe the inverse of that, are you neglecting others as we talk about keeping people first and caring for ourselves? Are you neglecting others by being too inwardly focused? Right? Again, this leaving a legacy and finishing well, we don't want to leave on bad terms. It's a fine balance to keep people first while also caring for yourself. Are you the image, maybe in your own context, as we keep thinking about this question of when you leave, people are going to reflect back and say, don't be like that person. They never cared for themselves and they just burned themselves out, right? No one wants to be that person. No one wants to be reflected back on that way, right? So here's my challenge today. And this is something that is extremely applicable, and you can do this each and every day. And I don't care how close you are to the end of your career in the industry or maybe where you're at, is each and every day, I want you to personalize this question. As you keep people first, but really care for yourself each and every day, I want you to wake up and I want you to do this daily. I want you to keep the question in front of you daily, and I want you to put it in deliberate and thoughtful places. So maybe you take this question, you put it on post-it notes, and you put it on your car dashboard or in a bathroom mirror or on your computer screen at work. Maybe it's on your locker. So every day when you come to shift, you're mindful of this question, right? And I want you again to daily answer this question. How am I doing? It's an individual check-in. It's a check-in with yourself. You don't have to share it with anyone. But what it's going to do is it's going to help you intentionally care for yourself each and every day. It's really simple, right? How am I doing? Answer that question. Don't allow yourself to say, oh, I'm fine, and move on with your day. Because what happens is oftentimes we skip over that intentional work of trying to ask ourselves that question. And then we get to work in this metaphorical switch is flipped, right? As the first responders, what that looks like for us in our context is we get to work, we flip that switch, and we start instantly pouring ourselves into caring for other people. So much so that we haven't checked in with ourselves. We don't actually know how we're doing. And all we're doing is piling more and more on to our own lives. Then we go home. We go home tired. We go home spent, worn out. We maybe don't always make the best choices of how to keep ourselves recharged. And this vicious cycle keeps going on and on and on because we haven't cared for ourselves. And I'm not here to spend a lot of time talking about all the wonderful ways you can care for yourself. But I think to start that conversation, ask yourself daily, how am I doing? Otherwise, the weight of this job, of this career, of this opportunity, it is going to take its toll on us. And it's going to lead us, if we're not careful, to stop caring for ourselves, to stop caring for other people. And when we leave the industry, we're going to leave a really, really crummy legacy. And today, that's what we're here to work against, right? So ask yourself daily. One of the prominent things with this question, though, is what happens is if we don't check in with ourselves, the kind of the inverse of it is that I think by virtue of this, and Jocko kind of brings this up in the video, the question from that law enforcement officer that was posted then was, this new line supervisor told this new officer he's to a new, bigger agency and he's really getting his feet wet. He's excited, passionate, encouraged, right? And they push back and say, dude, you just need to be a little bit more salty. And I think we joke about that term salty, or, even in our industry, sometimes we talk about how just by virtue of answering some really, really difficult calls or being on the radio for really, really difficult calls throughout our career, we end up getting jaded. We've had bad experiences. We get frustrated, salty, and there's a ton of different terms to describe what's going on. And so the challenge to care for yourself and care for others, keeping them first, is we can't let ourselves get to that point because that's a bad, bad place to get to. And that transitions us into this second point, right, on this slide, is what does it look like? Results versus relationships, and how does that impact our whole health? These two R's are really, really important for us in our lives. And I want you to really be willing to pour your attention and focus on the two. Are the results that you're striving for hurting the relationships or your overall health and life? Again, I just want to pause and I want you to think about that question. I know for me personally, there's been times in my life where I get so focused on results, and it could be as simple as not like a long-term thing, but even an individual call I've taken. I'm so focused on that call working out as well as it can that I recognize I haven't really checked in with the people that are also in the room with me to ensure they're doing all right. I haven't maybe checked in with myself, caring for myself, keeping others first, right? We get so focused on the results that we forget the relationships with others and with ourselves. Are the results that we're working towards or striving for, are they hurting those relationships, our health? right? Big questions. And to really oftentimes address that, for me personally, and I think it's true for most people, is you're going to probably need to seek someone out that can hold you accountable to being mindful of that relationships are more important oftentimes than the results. The mentality of focusing too much on results over relationships can be defeated. Don't feel like if you're in that place, well, it's, it's kind of been nailed shut, things are sealed. That can be defeated. But what you have to do is you have to recognize we can't be too proud to ask others for help or to check in with ourselves. So again, I want to challenge you today. And a lot of my approach to this concept is about presenting challenges that you're going to have to really accept or refuse, right? And this is one that I hope you accept. What I want to challenge you today is I want to challenge you to really focus on relationships. Overall, the results that you might feel like you need to work through in your life. Again, it could be as simple as an individual call that's been handled, a really stressful incident that you can ask these type of follow-up questions on, right? So to be more mindful of the relationships versus the results, we can ask ourselves simply, how am I feeling or how am I doing? How was I feeling or doing during that call? How am I feeling or doing after, right? Again, it's just that check-in with yourself like we talked about. But then it's asking other people that question. How are you doing? And not being content to let them say, oh, I'm fine, but really looking at them, look into their eyes, using the things you know about them to really recognize, are they doing okay? What are the signs that may stick out that they too are too focused on the results, and the relationships of caring for themselves and putting other people first are kind of sliding by the wayside? And I think the next question is, where in my own career or my own life have I forgotten the relationships that are important? Again, if we want to leave a good, positive legacy and finish well, we have to recognize that relationships must be of the utmost importance each and every day. As we care for ourselves and keep people first, we've got to recognize that if we focus on relationships, we're going to do that, and we're going to do that well. So we fight the mentality by asking ourselves some simple questions, right? I think the struggle with this, and when I really started developing this and thinking through this topic, it was during 2020, right? We were very, very disconnected. And the whole reason this training partnership exists for those of you in Missouri was to meet some needs during 2020, to ensure people weren't going to lapse, that they weren't going to miss the necessary and needed training, that you have those standards in front of you, but you weren't able to connect in person. But I think now we've moved beyond that. And as people feel comfortable and safe, what we want to do is ensure that people are really connecting in person, right? So, what are ways that, as the world has changed, we've become less connected? What are ways that we can combat that? How can we keep ourselves first, but really keeping others, care for ourselves while keeping others first? One of the main things we have to do is we have to connect, and we have to stay connected, right? I oftentimes think about this image of yarn. For me personally, if you were to take a whole bunch of lengths of yarn, it's very easy to cut those pieces of yarn up, right? There's no real content or substance to them. But if you were to take an entire skein, I think is the correct term. Hopefully I didn't botch that for any of you who work with yarn, but take that whole big, massive ball of yarn, you'd have to have a really, really specific tool to make a single cut through all of that and really sever that entirety of yarn. For us as humans, the more that we're willing to stay connected, so much so that we're more like that skein of yarn versus those individual threads that kind of are laid out by themselves, allows us to really be stronger ourselves and keep others first more and more. So care for yourself, keep people first. All of this, though, points back to that concept that we just talked about in point one of having a true concept of team. And it looks an awful lot, if I had to identify it myself, like championing people caring for themselves, right? So we're going to transition for the sake of time here into point three, giving without the expectation of getting, right? So I said earlier, I grew up in Missouri. Missouri is the show me state, if you weren't aware. So for me growing up, I kind of joke that there's a lot of times where I felt like people had to prove themselves by showing me something, right? To really get an idea of it. And oftentimes we slip into this mindset of, I've given so much, I've given so much of my time. Are they going to give back to me? And again, as we finish well and leave a good legacy, if we're worried about making sure we get what we feel owed, we're going to probably not finish well. So whether it be, oh, the massive amounts of overtime I've worked, or all the projects I have on my plate, or all the training I've done, or where I'm at in the chain of command, all of those things, right? I've given so much. When are they going to give back to me? We've got to erase that mentality. For ourselves, we've got a lot of great examples from history, right? Anne Frank, in 2020, I was also fortunate to go sit through a session that her stepsister presented at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. And I got to hear firsthand. I'd read and learned about Anne Frank growing up and seen stuff, but I got to hear firsthand from her family, her own family member, right? About her desire to give back. She didn't care to get anything in return. She just really genuinely cared. And her desire to give back was through that diary, right? And it helped a world and society to recognize her fears, to understand her fears, her joys. She shared all of that with us in a way that she expected nothing in return. And for us, there's other people in our life, right? We look at this list. There's people like Mother Teresa. There's people like Gandhi. There's people like Martin Luther King Jr., right? Who else can you think of in your own lives that have given without the expectation of getting? And that leads us to this next point, is that gifts really need to be gifts. When I was going to college, I had a professor that had this beautiful illustration, right? He would bring someone in front of the classroom and sit them down in a chair, and he would have a wrapped gift, and he would go to give that to them while they're sitting in that chair, and there would be no prompting or front loading this instruction. But he would go to give them that gift, and every time they would reach their hands up to try to take the gift, he would stop them and he would say, no, 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 this is a gift. And they'd be like, okay, it's a gift, right? And so he finally would get to the point of, this is so much of a gift to you that there's nothing you can do to really accept it, because it's wholly from me. So he would get them to the point where the gift had to be 100% just set on their lap, and then they could really understand what it meant to be a gift. So the challenge for us today is, are you giving or are you taking more than you're giving? It's a tough question. I think in the industry, sometimes we feel like all we do is give. We don't get the recognition. We don't get we're not pointed out enough. We're kind of those silent behind the scenes people in the spectrum of public safety, in that vital chain of getting the right resources to the right people at the right time. We kind of blend into the background, and a lot of us are fine with that. But are we so focused on giving and expecting to get that we aren't really giving well? So a simple way, and two tangible takeaways, right? Real, relevant, practical, is, what does it look like for you in your current context as you transition out to look at time and money? Those are two of the easiest things. Money, you have to have a little bit more means, but time, aside from just having the time, it doesn't cost a thing oftentimes, right? So for us, what does it look like in the grand scheme of times? How can you reflect on your concept of team and then care for them, right? Care for yourself, pour into your team, pour into yourself, give yourself time, give your team time. Think about a frequent flyer caller, right? Can your peers hear and see your frustration? Could you pause with that frequent flyer and change your demeanor? What does it look like to mentor, to model, even for your coworkers, that I can keep people first by giving time? So even those people you serve in your community, you give them time without respecting anything in return. What does it look like to check in with someone who's in training? You may not even be their trainer, but just give them their time, give them your time. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How's training going? What does this look like? Simple expressions from ourselves that don't cost a thing. But we can get to things that maybe cost a little bit or a lot, right? When it comes to money, none of us got into this job to get rich. And I understand that, but little bits can go a long way. Maybe it's treats, it's pizza, it's a handwritten card or note. Maybe it's Post-it notes. Maybe you take time to set up affirmation bags around your center on people's locker. Find people doing things well where they weren't expecting to get anything in return, and we're going to recognize how much they've been giving, right? We're not necessarily returning on or assuming that they expect to get any recognition, but when we are able to recognize how much they're giving without expecting anything in return, it's a pretty powerful thing. It's the same for us. Maybe you bring pizza to the shift, or find a reason to go talk to someone without having any reason for it. It's not a conversation about how their performance is bad, but we just keep filling ourselves up. We're keeping others filled up without expecting anything in return. Now, I'm often met with, well, I feel like it's too late. I've already burned bridges. I'm too far in my career. I'm too close to the end. How can I really do any of this? Give gifts, make a difference in people's lives, like someone like Anne Frank. I'm not saying you necessarily have to do that. Regardless of where you're at, there's always time to make change. And if we let ourselves get so focused on, well, I'm too far gone, we will leave and not leave that positive impact. So today, kind of our final take-home point is about empowering future generations. And I'll be honest, this is the one that I'm probably the most passionate about. The more that we empower and the less that we control, the more successful we're going to be as we transition and finish well, leaving a really, really great legacy. I've got a captain. He's the captain that's over the unit that I'm a part of at the sheriff's office. And he loves to drive home how vitally important it is to empower the people we work with. Find people doing things well, be generous in our gratitude of others, right? Empowerment is about really giving that baton over and allowing someone to run without still trying to pull it back from them as they take off and go in a new direction. We need, as we transition out especially, to consider what does it look like to empower more so that the legacy we leave isn't really about us, but it's about the legacy we've built for their leadership to continue far on into the future. And that's about what it is, right? It's about building a situation that will benefit those in the future, even people we may not ever know. I've got a peer in the industry. He works down in Pitkin County here in Colorado, and he loves to point out when he does any training session that the people that we're going to hire here in the next 5 years that are going to be our employees are current 8th graders, right? Which blows my mind. If you don't think you're going to be around in 5 years, this year's 8th graders who are going to be the future of your communication center or your business or your industry, they're 8th graders and we're trusting them, right? But yet we can still leave a phenomenal foundation for what the future looks like for those generations behind us, right? And that's all done by leading from being in the trenches, right? It's those second chair leaders. Again, like I said earlier, you don't have to have the rank, the status, the title to lead and do things well. A true leader is someone who focuses on working themselves out of the job. And all these changes, as we look at the end, the people who have gone before you, all these changes that have come down from the people that have gone on before you came from a willingness on their part to empower others, to give up control, to expect less, and to move on in life. So this point, what I want you to reflect back on right now as we get towards the end of our time, and I know we got a little bit late start, so hopefully if you're willing to stick around, we've got a couple more brief videos. But what I want you to do on this point, as you take this home and make this real practical and relevant, is I want you to reflect back on who are those who have positively left your center and what type of legacy did they leave? How do you speak of those people that have gone on before you? Share those examples and let them be something that drives you long into the future. Today, I want to, as we wrap up, I want to just look at these time left milestones. As you hold on to these last years and really prepare for life after the headset has been hung up for that last time, today's presentation being there on the left as a beginning point, a springboard, a launching point, all the way to hanging up the headset. How much time do you have? Each of these points on this timeline are significant opportunities for you to make an impact in your own life, in your own center, in your own context. I guess you could have just looked at that quote I have there from Fred Rogers and saved yourselves about the last hour of your life of listening to me talk and just read his quote, because oftentimes when we think that we're at the end of something, we're really at the beginning of something else. And that's what this transition out looks like. It's recognizing that even as our career may be coming to an end, or even our time in a certain career or a job or a position is coming to an end, it's not an end, but it's a launch forth into something that much better. I've got 2 last videos that I want to really leave us with today. And Zach, if you want to start pulling up the Budweiser commercial one, we'll get ready. It's looking at, it's from the 2020 Super Bowl. I'm from Missouri. I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. It's from the year they won the Super Bowl, but this commercial is brilliant. It's simple. It's short. Yes, it's about beer. I'm not endorsing Budweiser in any way, shape, or form, but the substance of the commercial is phenomenal. Go ahead, Zach.
They call us typical Americans. Maybe because we live typical American lives. Like this typical American, showing off his strength. So typical. Look at him, touching other people's things. Always so competitive. Typical Americans, showing up uninvited. Removing their clothes in public. Yelling and being loud. Just look at them, thinking they can save the world. Typical Americans, always celebrating with their typical American beer. So, next time someone labels you typical, show them what typical can do.
I think for us, we kind of put ourselves, as we think about these time left milestones, kind of on the back burner, right? I don't think we always recognize that we may be typical, but typical each and every day does some really magnificent things. So as we leave today and begin to wrap up, again, I've got one last video that's going to kind of close us out. And again, I want to be a good steward of time. My information will be on the very last slide. Please reach out as time allows. But if you get nothing else out of today, remember that just because you feel typical, like they challenged us in that commercial, why not show the people around you, your family, your friends, your coworkers, supervisors, bosses, show them what typical really does each and every day as you start to finish well and leave a phenomenal legacy on the people that you've impacted. This last commercial was also from that same Super Bowl. It was a Google commercial it was about Loretta, and I'll have Zach kind of get that lined up. And it's about leaving a legacy. And after it's over, I just want to take a few moments to pause as we watch that this last commercial. Go ahead, Zach.
Hey Google, show me photos of me and Loretta. Remember, Loretta hated my mustache. Remember, Loretta loved going to Alaska and scallops. Show me photos from our anniversary. Remember, she always snorted when she laughed. Play our favorite movie. Remember, I'm the luckiest man in the world. Come on, boy.
So as you watch that last video, and I get it's a commercial, right? It's about Google, but I think there's more to it. So as we wrap up today, I hope you'll take time and really pause and reflect on your career. Again, regardless of where you're at on these milestones, I hope that you'll take time to reflect on, what do you want to remember? What last day plans do you have, or what book might you be able to write when you're done? Start capturing these things before you leave, before you forget, before they dissolve, right? Each and every one of you has done really, really amazing things. You're all significant and amazing people. As you finish well and leave that legacy, you're going to leave a great legacy. I'm confident of that. But also keep yourself mindful of that legacy you left. What do you really want to remember? And like he says there in the end of that Google commercial about Loretta, he says he's the luckiest guy or the luckiest man in the world, right? And we really are the luckiest people in the world. I'm convinced of it. At times our job feels thankless, but we're important. You're important. So as you finish well, the thing I want you to walk away knowing is that you finished well and you left an awesome legacy. You've been a part of so many huge changes, probably depending on where you're at in your career. And as of late, it seems like those changes are more and more significant. So as you leave, let this job be your Loretta. Look back on it fondly, like he did as her husband, as things, as ways are parted, right? Look back on your job as your Loretta. Let it be something you remember fondly. Today, I just want to say thanks so much for your time. I know it's brief. It always feels like it goes too quickly, but again, many, many thanks. Here's my contact information. Please stay in touch. You, each and every one of you, have impacted so many people outside and inside your communication center, the companies you work for. You've impacted me. Like I said, by virtue of being here today, I'm better because of the opportunity to share some things with you, and hopefully you'll feed back into me by keeping in touch. Let all these fond memories that hopefully came to mind, starting from that original icebreaker, if you will, of the music or the age or the gift or the decade. Let all of this, all of the things that have been conjured up in your mind today, whether you had some emotional responses or thoughts to those different videos we've watched, let all of this be a part of who you are as a person. And never forget the amazing legacy that you are going to leave behind, and take the time to really, really finish well. Again, thanks so much for your time today. I'm sure Zach will take it away. If there's any questions or anything in the chat, let me know, Zach. Otherwise, please reach out, each and every one of you. Thank you.
Well, don't mind me as I just, try not to cry over here. Anyway, that was a great session. I know that's, why am I so large compared to you? That is not what needs to, there we go. Let's get the main guy there. I know that's not normally the type of session that we've been doing, but I think it's a very needed one. So thank you so much, Matt, for taking your time out of your day to come in and do that. There was a lot of good buy-in. Halcyon said that you personally attacked her.
Potentially.
She says, "Are you implying I have poor boundaries and people-pleasing tendencies? I feel so attacked." It was about 30 minutes ago, but I wanted to share that. So we had a lot of good buy-in. Some people sharing about their heroes, like you asked, that are back there in the chat if you want to go look through it. But yeah, any questions for Matt? This is your time to do so. Again, the only way you're going to get a training certificate is if you click on the floating green button that is directly below Matt right now. It says sign in and get credit for this training. You'll fill out a quick form, and you'll get a certificate in about 36 to 72 hours, something like that. I'm trying to stretch it out. I'm not seeing anything. If there is, we'll get back to you. So I hope you guys have a great holiday season. Stay safe, stay sane. We know how traffic gets around this time of year and how the domestics get this time of year. So please take care of yourself mentally, take care of yourself physically, and eat some good food. But I will see you all in 2023, and I hope you have a great rest of your 2022.